Hello, watchers! How are you? I'm back. That intro you just saw was provided by Black Scorpion from Lanthrax.com. Thank him for me. Thank you! And the logo, as you're seeing now, that is, the dog was drawn by Merqueen, my girlfriend, and the rest of it was done also by Black Scorpion. Anyway, I know I've got a bad habit of ranting and talking, well, I wouldn't even call it ranting, talking too much, rambling, so I'm just going to go straight to the review. Bam! The Vampire Hunters website promises us a full 3D role-playing game with adventure-like elements that will charm the player with its dark atmosphere of old docks where a mysterious clan of vampires rages free. That does sound pretty sweet, doesn't it? The real question is, however, how true is it? When first starting a game, the player is shown a pretty decent cutscene showing off some random guy walking in the docks and getting killed by a vampire. Well, we assume he's a vampire because this game is called Vampire Hunters. He doesn't actually show any obvious symptoms of vampirism.
I'll be right out.
Then the game begins, and we are off to a very promising start. The area is very well designed with a lot of attention given to detail, and although he tends to run a little funny, the main character animates very nicely for just about every action he does. As far as 3D independent games go, this is a very good looking game. And also the game has an original soundtrack that suits the atmosphere quite well and generally sounds pretty decent, if it's a little forgettable. Unfortunately, as far as good points go, that's all this game has to offer. One of the main problems is the lack of sound. While there are sound effects, it's very obvious the team couldn't get a hold of a sound engineer. I do sympathize, but this does hurt the game's atmosphere a bit too much. Fights feel a lot less exciting without a decent slice or whack sound effect, and spells look really fancy, but without the right charge and activate sound effects, they are missing something. In fact, you can even tell in the intro movie I had just shown you. Next up is the combat system and overall difficulty. This game uses an ATB battle system much like that of Final Fantasy. Overall, it is decently implemented with nicely animated attacks and fancy particle effects in the magic, disregarding lack of sound anyway. But the main problem is that in games like Final Fantasy you always have 3 or 4 party members. The ATB battle system is optimized for that many heroes, being able to have one character attack while someone else prepares a powerful spell while a third hero throws healing potions at his teammates. That way works. But in Vampire Hunters, you're just one guy, and you always will be. This results in fights being increasingly frustrating when you are facing off with more than one opponent, as it's very easy to overestimate your health for the round and not survive the barrage of attacks, all directed at your one character. Or to get stuck to the point where if you don't heal, you die, but if you heal, the enemies will more or less cause the same amount of damage that you healed, getting you nowhere until they either get a critical hit and kill you, or miss, or you run out of potions. Some of you may be thinking that with a bit of grinding you can always come back to these particularly difficult encounters with better stats. But unfortunately you'd be wrong, and herein lies the next problem. There is no randomness to the enemy encounters. Enemies will ambush you at very specific locations or just stand somewhere protecting something until you get close enough to fight them. This results in very limited loot, money and experience. When you reach a boss, you're always going to be a specific level, and no matter how many buff potions and spells you use, it's going to be frustrating. Victory, more often than not, depending on the boss missing a few times more than they should. Another problem caused by this is that at times it may feel like there is no way to continue the game. It's possible that your only way to exit the area is blocked off by an enemy or boss, and you just don't have the healing items to take them on. And the only way to get to the shop is past the enemy, and so this happens until you're lucky. The final problem is the story. All the issues I mentioned above might have been forgivable if the story was truly engaging, as with most RPGs, the story is what really matters. Vampire Hunters tells the story of Bernard on his quest to find out who murdered his friend Ivan and why, in a vampire-infested world. Not a particularly original setting, but one that can be worked with by a decent writer. Unfortunately, they didn't have one. The story might be good, but with the terrible dialogue the game has to offer, it's really hard to tell. The lack of voice acting doesn't help either, although to be perfectly honest, I can't imagine any good voice acting to go with the terrible dialogue. Let me just show you some of my favorite parts, which I shall read out for your benefit. The gate is locked. The lock looks solid and chains look massive. Only a chainsaw would help. What was that noise?
I'll slice you into pieces with this chainsaw.
Yes.
What you looking at?
Well...
You're smirking, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Oh, yes, you are.
Of course I'm not.
Yeah.
No.
Huh! You just did it, you grinned.
Well, maybe just a little.
Son of a... Look, we got caught in our trap.
This is what you call a trap?
Yes, we have you where we wanted.
You meant having me here so you can fight me?
Cool trap, so let's dance. You bald jerk, we can't wait to see your insides.
Funny, they're searching for me and I'm just behind them. I can kill them so easily from behind. But it's a bit unfair, being good guys so stupid sometimes, whatever. Hey guys, I'm over here, come and fight me! In conclusion, I'd like to say that this game has a lot of potential. Unfortunately, potential alone doesn't sell games. The engine it runs on is rock solid, but everything else brings it down far too much, and I can't honestly say I enjoyed the experience. If they replaced the writer, or forced him to read a damn book or two, and then made the sequel with decent writing and some more party members, I actually think it could be very good. But, as it stands, Vampire Hunters is just not a good game.